It's a special emergency edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Desmond Bane has been traded, according to Charania of ESPN, to the Orlando Magic for two players, Cole Anthony and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 4 first-round picks, and the right to swap in 2029 a first-round pick. We're going to talk about it all and more on this special edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this Sunday that also doubles as a Monday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Joe Mullinax. No DeMichael Cole with me on this episode for understandable reasons. He is the Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee, after all. So he is very busy covering this breaking news on a Sunday morning. And Zach Kleiman, I got to tell you, I don't appreciate here on this beloved Father's Day that you are making these kind of moves in this moment. You may not be able to see this. You see this pin? This pin says #1 dad, that I got it from my children. And instead of hanging out with them, I'm talking with all of our wonderful everydayers and hopefully even more folks than that become everydayers to this show. I don't hate the trade, but I do hate the timing. But that's okay. We do the work that we need to do, and I appreciate all of you being with me. Again, this episode went live on Sunday, but it's going to double up as our Monday edition of the show. So if you're catching up late after enjoying the holiday, we're glad you're with us, and hopefully you stick around with us here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Again, like, comment, rate, review, subscribe, wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, we're everywhere. Hopefully you're an everydayer to this show, but if you're not, I'm Joe Mullinax. Thank you so much for being with me. I've covered the Grizzlies for over a decade, and I have seen big trades go down. Marc Gasol, Mike Conley, Rudy Gay. This is up there in terms of the Mike Conley trade in particular with a franchise-shifting deal for the Memphis Grizzlies. We're going to talk about what actually is coming back to Memphis here in a bit. And we're going to cover, is this just the start for the Grizzlies? Is something bigger coming? It's possible that's true. But I want to lead off this show talking about Desmond Bane because I am a huge Desmond Bane fan. If you are an everydayer to this podcast, you know that to be the case. In my over a decade covering the team, a vast majority of it was done at SB Nation's Grizzly Bear Blues, which eventually became Bluff City Media's Grizzly Bear Blues. And I got to tell you, I have favorite Grizzlies players. Of course, we all do, right? Marc Gasol is my all-time favorite. Mike Conley's up there. Love Zebo, TA, the core four in general. But Desmond Bane, man, I loved Desmond Bane to the point where it was super awkward at times, right? Like if you're a fan of the John Oliver Last Week Tonight program on HBO, you know, the bit that he did with Adam Driver. I was John Oliver and Desmond Bane was my Adam Driver in terms of the way that I viewed him. And I respect Desmond Bane immensely, not just as a basketball player, and we'll talk about that a little bit here in a moment, but I respect him immensely as a leader for this Grizzlies roster. When Zach Kleiman talked about the need for dogs in the locker room and that being a priority this offseason, the reason I didn't think Desmond Bane was on the trading block is because he's a dog. Desmond Bane is that guy. Bane is somebody that you could count on to compete when he was injured, banged up. He was the captain in my mind and in my eyes. And he developed his game over the years. And he became an even better off-ball creator and on-ball facilitator than anybody thought he would ever be. One of the reasons he fell in the draft, one of the reasons he was there for the Grizzlies to take so late in the first round back in 2020 is people thought he was a one-trick pony. People thought that Desmond Bane would not be able to do some of the things that he has proven capable of doing as a fringe all-star caliber player here in the first 5 or so seasons of his NBA career. But here is Desmond Bane doing exactly what the Memphis Grizzlies needed him to do more often than not. He was there. And he is one of the very best three-point shooters in the National Basketball Association. Do not get that twisted. The Grizzlies are losing a heck of a perimeter threat in this deal. Shams Charania of ESPN is the one, again, who reported the trade on Sunday morning. And this is from Shams on X. Bane is one of 3 NBA players with 800 made three-pointers and 40% three-point shooting since entering the league in 2020, has shot 43.2% on catch-and-shoot threes in the last 5 seasons. He's a major boost for the Magic, who ranked last in three-point field goal percentage this season. We'll talk more about what the Magic gave up for Desmond Bane in a bit, but do not allow the lack of accolades, the lack of all-star appearances, the argument about his contract. Push all that to the side. If you can't acquire Steph Curry, and if you can't acquire, Klay Thompson from 5 years ago, the next best thing is Desmond Bane. So the Grizzlies are losing a significant piece in that space because Bane is that kind of creator of offense for himself, the fly-by threes, the way that he's able on those catch-and-shoot opportunities to take those bucket-getting moments and make them his. When a Desmond Bane three-point shot was shot, I thought it was going in every time. Can't say that about John Morant. Can't say that about Jaren Jackson Jr. Can't say that about most players in the history of the Memphis Grizzlies franchise. You could say that about Desmond Bane. And again, the way that he carried himself professionally, the way that he was viewed in that locker room, I wasn't in there consistently, but I talked with DeMichael Cole about it. I talked with others about it. When I went on my trip to Memphis in March to cover a couple of games, I saw it. Desmond Bane is somebody that is looked at with respect because he works at his craft and he loves the game of basketball. To go from TCU being your only Division I offer to making the most of your opportunity there to becoming a heck of an NBA player who is owed over the next several seasons a heck of a lot of money. One of the reasons that Desmond Bane is no longer in Memphis, reportedly. That is something that should not be taken for granted. Desmond Bane is a self-made man. Desmond Bane is a competitor. Desmond Bane is afraid of nothing and no one. And that mentality was extremely valuable in those early years of this era of Grizzlies basketball when he was getting in the face of LeBron James. The King, when he was looking and staring down anyone that would get in the Grizzlies' way. That swagger, that confidence, so much of it is given credit to for Ja. Understandably so. But make no mistake, Desmond Bane's a part of that process too. So this is a moment to appreciate what Desmond Bane was for the Memphis Grizzlies, because he was exactly what Ja Morant needed as a backcourt mate. He was exactly what Jaren Jackson Jr. needed as a co-star when all was swirling around Memphis during Ja Morant's suspension, the injury-riddled season prior to this past one that just concluded. All of those things, Desmond Bane was someone that you could count on more often than not. And he earned that contract, and he has earned everything he's gotten in the National Basketball Association. So when you look at what the Magic gave up, and again, we'll talk more about that here in a minute. When you look at that list and you say, wow, that's a lot. Desmond Bane is worth a lot. What does that mean for Kevin Durant trades? What does that mean for potential moves down the road that we'll talk more about later on in the show? It's a fair question to ask. But what I do think is important to do in this moment is say thank you to Desmond Bane, because he truly helped to get the Grizzlies through one of the most challenging stretches in their franchise's history. We knew that a trade like this was possible. DeMichael and I have talked about on the show numerous times how Bane was one of the big three that made the most sense to move on from. And we talked about how the way they could spread that money out over numerous players as opposed to having it all tied up in one guy. And that's exactly what has transpired. But I can't pretend to be completely clairvoyant, because what else the Magic gave to the Grizzlies, the other pieces of this deal, in exchange for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, and multiple first-round future picks from the Orlando Magic. I am of the belief that Desmond Bane was seen as an important piece of this Grizzlies roster. I am of the belief that Memphis was not prepared to trade Desmond Bane. But when an offer like this comes across your desk, if you're Zach Kleiman, if you're the Grizzlies general manager, it would be organizational malpractice to not accept this trade. And we'll talk about, going in a little bit more deeper, what exactly the Orlando Magic think of the value of Desmond Bane. What's coming back to Memphis now that Dez is heading off to Orlando. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start actually building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. It was way too much money. Now I budget smarter and I save more, and it allows for easy collaboration with my wife. Managing money with my wife is smoother than ever. You track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Check them out today. So again, Shams Charania of ESPN reporting that the Grizzlies are moving on from Desmond Bane. They have traded him to the Orlando Magic, and here is what is being shipped out. Again, at Shams Charania on X. Orlando is sending to Memphis the number 16 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. That's important. We can go back to having Tankathon. We have Rafael Barlow on the show now. Hey, that'll help with some content in the days and weeks to come. Not that that'll be an issue now. But the number 16 pick in the 2025 NBA draft, according to Tankathon, that selection could be somebody the likes of Jace Richardson of Michigan State, Liam McNeely of UConn. There's lots of different possibilities. Carter Bryant of Arizona, different guys at the end of the lottery there, those first couple of picks coming out of the lottery. We'll talk more about that in the days and weeks to come. But that's not all. The Memphis Grizzlies are also getting Phoenix's first-round pick in 2026, and we're going to come back to that. The Magic 2028 unprotected first-round pick and an unprotected first-round pick in 2030. There's also a pick swap that is lightly protected in 2029. Those draft picks plus Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Cole Anthony for Desmond Bane. This is a Godfather offer. It's kind of fitting that it happened on Father's Day, to be honest with you, because this is an offer that's Godfather-esque, an offer that the Grizzlies simply could not refuse. 4 first-round picks, 1 in the middle of this draft. The 2026 Suns pick, that is intriguing for a lot of different reasons. One of them we'll talk about later on in the show. But that Phoenix pick could be pretty bad, folks. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the news on the NBA lately, but Kevin Durant's on his way out. What that trade looks like and how the Suns interact now with this reality that the Grizzlies have their 2026 pick. Houston still has a lot of their future in terms of draft capital tied up, the Phoenix future tied up in Houston. But now the Grizzlies have a piece of that pie, and it's the most immediate one. The next first-round pick is in the hands of the Memphis Grizzlies, plus 2 additional unprotected firsts in 2028 and 2030. 2030, that's 5 years from now. Who in the heck knows where the Orlando Magic and the Memphis Grizzlies will be over that time period? That is a massive amount of draft capital for Desmond Bane. And you could pretty easily argue that is where the value is for the Grizzlies, because, well, Cole Anthony and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope are 2 contributing players. And again, I mentioned that earlier in the show. DeMichael and I have talked about this idea. You have so much money tied up in Desmond Bane individually, right? 34 million, 36.7, 39.4, 42.2, and then in the last year of the contract, 44.9 million. That all is according to Cleaning the Glass. That's all in one player. Desmond Bane, a very good player, as we talked about earlier. Very good three-point shooter, very good creator of offense for himself, improved creator of offense for others, but that was overly invested in the last couple of years. Des was not able to be the best version of himself in Memphis because of what was asked of him by Taylor Jenkins. Maybe that changes. Maybe that changes. Desmond Bane gets moved. Cole Anthony comes in, and he most certainly is not Desmond Bane. Shot 34% from 3 over the last 2 seasons. But what Cole Anthony can be is a backup point guard for John Morant. He can be point guard depth and guard depth alongside Scottie Pippen Jr., assuming Cole Anthony sticks around in Memphis. And then you bring in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who immediately becomes the oldest member of the roster. 32 years old is KCP. But KCP has championship pedigree dating back to his time with the Denver Nuggets. KCP is an excellent wing defender. Very good still, even at this age of 32 years old, a good wing defender. Opposing teams scored 1.2 fewer points this past season when KCP was on the floor for the Orlando Magic. Compare that to when he was on those Denver Nuggets teams, and he was even better than that. So the Grizzlies said, and I mentioned this earlier in the show, looking for dogs, right? They were looking for dogs this offseason. KCP's a dog. And he has a championship pedigree. Cole Anthony, a competitor. I don't know if I would call him a dog. I don't know I would bark too much for Anthony, but he provides backcourt depth, and that was necessary. We talked about that on our most recent episode, that idea of bigs and wings. I brought up how you could argue the Grizzlies need a point guard. Well, here's one now in Cole Anthony. So they spread that money out. Cole Anthony, about $13 million. KCP, on a descending deal, about $22 to $21 million over the next couple of years. So those two players make the money that Bane made. You're expanding your rotation a little bit. We've talked about Jalen Wells playing the two guard more, and that's intriguing because KCP, 6'5", you would argue he is the two, but he's so long, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He has the wingspan. He has the capacity defensively. He can defend multiple wings. Jalen Wells can be a little bit more free-flowing offensively and defensively now, a little bit more switchability there on the perimeter, which is exciting. Especially if Brandon Clark sticks around. Imagine that starting five. Jalen Wells, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark alongside John Morant. Lots of defensive versatility there. So I'm not going to try to make it sound like the Grizzlies are better without Desmond Bane, because I do think Desmond Bane is very clearly the best player in this trade. But it is not like the Grizzlies get back schmucks that aren't going to be contributors. Cole Anthony played over 1,100 minutes for the Magic this past season. KCP played over 2,200 minutes for the Magic this past season. So these are guys that are going to be contributors if they stick in Memphis. Keyword there being if. And with that 16th pick in this draft, you can add somebody that can provide you depth in your front court. With all of the additional assets that you've acquired, you can put a greater emphasis on if there's somebody that you want to move up for. Kaman Malua, I always mispronounce that name. The center from Duke, 7'4" or 7'2", 250. Sounds a little bit more like our boy Zach Edey. Maybe you want to move up for him. I'm not saying I would do that, but if you have to get into the lottery, you have that ability to do that now. You have those assets. And that 2026 first-round pick might be one of the most valuable picks in the entire NBA. Because who has any idea what the Phoenix Suns are going to look like this time next year? It's very possible that's a lottery selection for the Grizzlies. So Desmond Bane, who, friendly reminder, was the 30th pick in the 2020 NBA draft, has now resulted in Cole Anthony, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, two rotation players. Again, no illusions of grandeur that they're better than Desmond Bane. The Grizzlies lose a lot of three-point shooting. They have to figure out how to replace that, right? Not going to pretend like that doesn't matter, because it does. KCP, very good defender, but in terms of his three-point shooting, that fell off a little bit this past year, 34%. In Denver, he shot a lot better than that. Even in Los Angeles. In Washington, he shot a lot better than that. So maybe he bounces back a little bit. I'm sure the Grizzlies are betting on some progression to the mean rather than the regression. But the Grizzlies do not have the three-point shooting that they did before this reported deal was made. But they have the assets to add that kind of stuff now. And they have the salary solvency where they don't have so much money tied up in three guys. They have a lot of money tied up in two guys and two more tradable deals in Anthony and KCP that are a lot more palatable to this salary situation for Memphis. That is really important to point out. That second apron, all that sort of stuff, not as much of an issue, not as much of a concern. They can fully invest in Jaren Jackson Jr., give him a max contract. You've got your two max guys in John Jaren, and now you have a lot more resources to build around them moving forward. You could pretty easily argue this was a necessary deal. I still would have preferred to keep Dez, But that was before seeing KCP, Anthony, 4 first-round picks, and a pick swap in 2029. That is an offer that Memphis simply could not refuse. Let me know on X. Hit me up in the comments at Joe Mullinax on X. How are you feeling about what the Grizzlies get back for Bane? Maybe we can have a Desmond Bane appreciation thread, that sort of thing. Let us know. Hit us up there. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we'll close out the special Sunday/Monday edition of the show, talking about what may come next. Is there another shoe to drop for the Grizzlies? Stick around here on the podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA Finals are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. What would it look like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? I wonder. Maybe you could do that for the finals game coming up this Monday. Maybe you have a read on who's heating up. Why not back it up with a same-game parlay? Put your money literally where your mouth is. And if you're new to FanDuel, a $200 bonus in bets adds to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Check them out. So again, what's next, right? What comes next for these Memphis Grizzlies? An interesting question, one that we're going to be tackling for multiple episodes of Locked On Grizzlies. Our next episode, assuming there isn't another shoe to drop literally as we're recording this one, we're going to do a crossover with Orlando, talk to them about their what they're getting in Bane, what the Grizzlies are getting back in Anthony and KCP. We're going to have a crossover edition of the show coming up in the next 24 to 48 hours. So make sure you're here with us. Excited to do that crossover with Locked On Magic. Assuming there isn't anything else to happen on this Father's Day, when I'm able to enjoy my time with my family a little bit more, we're going to be able to dive a lot deeper in than just one segment of this podcast. But your mind can go a little bit more into the realm of what's possible. And you can expand that a little bit more after this trade. Because obviously Desmond Bane's awesome, right? Can't dispute that. But what if you could get Kevin Durant instead of Desmond Bane? Is Kevin Durant better than Desmond Bane? Yeah. Kevin Durant's better than Desmond Bane. How cool would it be to have Kevin Durant on the Memphis Grizzlies? His name has not come up in Memphis. Hasn't been a part of the ESPN or NBA media sphere in terms of reports. It's San Antonio. It's Minnesota. It's Houston, like we talked about earlier in the show. That makes a lot of sense. Houston makes a ton of sense for Kevin Durant. And Durant has reportedly, per Shams, said that that's a place that he would see himself re-signing. That doesn't mean that a year or two of KD wouldn't make sense for the Grizzlies, because look at Cole Anthony's contract. Team option a couple years from now, $13.1 million. Look at KCP's contract. Player option, $21.6 million a couple years from now. And then if you go and you look at Kevin Durant's contract, and obviously there's lots of different things with KD being at the stage of his career that he is. But Durant could very easily move on in a couple of years. So is it possible that the Grizzlies could look at KD and say, hey, maybe you don't re-sign in Memphis. We're fine with that. We're going to pair the two contracts that we just acquired, Cole Anthony, KCP. That puts us at about 35 mil. Then we're going to take a couple other deals, a John Conchar here, Brandon Clark there. And we're going to find a way to get a trade together to bring you to Memphis. And now you're looking at a John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Kevin Durant, three-headed monster for a couple of years. Do I think that's the way the Grizzlies go? No, I don't. But it's more possible now than it was before. I think that is more possible than it was because of this trade. The Grizzlies have something that the Suns are going to want, that 2026 pick. The Houston Rockets have more of something that the Grizzlies are going to want. But it is possible. There is possibility there. Another possibility. The Boston Celtics. We were talking about this on a recent show, and people were saying in the comments on YouTube, Joe, why would the Celtics completely punt? They're a championship contender. Not without Jason Tatum, they're not. They weren't a championship contender with Jason Tatum. And you're trying to tell me that the Boston Celtics' new ownership is going to pay Derek White and pay Jaylen Brown, and pay Kristaps Porzingis, excuse me? They're going to pay all three of those guys and be in the second apron in the luxury tax for another year while their best player, Jason Tatum, is out due to an Achilles injury? Zero chance of that happening. Derek White, I want to talk about a dog. Somebody that's better than Desmond Bane. I mean, Derek White is more obtainable now. That is more possible now because of what the Grizzlies have done. They are bigger players in the trade market if they want to be. But if the Grizzlies decide they just want to build long-term around John Jaren Jackson Jr., take a look at the Dallas Mavericks and the way that they lucked into the number 1 overall pick, which will almost certainly be Cooper Flagg here in a week or two. Could that happen to the Grizzlies in 2026 if Phoenix completely falls apart? Yeah. And now you're adding a top contributing rookie contract next to your 2 max players in Ja and Jaren. And now you have additional assets to move around, move up in drafts, move back if you so choose, to bring in veteran players for first-round capital. The Grizzlies can build within the new CBA and the rules that accompany it and trying to avoid the aprons because it impacts how you can build your roster. The Grizzlies can do all those things much more fluidly now that Desmond Bane money has gone from being tied up in one player to being broken up across 2 players. It is similar to the Mike Conley trade that happened before Ja Morant was drafted. And it allowed for the Grizzlies to do so many different things that accelerated their timeline to the place where they were as the number 2 seed in the Western Conference for 2 years straight. Is that possible here? The Grizzlies don't have a lottery pick this year that's going to turn into Ja Morant, right? So maybe not as direct a line, but it does give so much more room for possibilities. If they want to go pursue a Kevin Durant, if they want to go pursue a Derek White, if they want to be the 3rd team in one of these trades and try to get even more assets or more contributing players, it just got a lot easier for them to do that. Because that Desmond Bane contract is now split across 2 different players and there's draft capital to accelerate, accentuate, facilitate, whatever Tate word you want to use. There are more avenues. There's more lanes for the Grizzlies to travel to improve this team. Desmond Bane's a heck of a basketball player, was wonderful for the Memphis Grizzlies. Again, this was an offer Memphis couldn't refuse. They have so much more that they can do now. And they have more work to do. There will be other shoes to drop. But how those shoes drop bears watching. Do they go all in and try to upgrade who that 3rd guy was going to be? Or do they say, Ja and Jaren are our guys, let's build around those 2 and use these pieces to put a rotation around them that accelerates and accentuates their skill sets? It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be an interesting summer in Memphis, to be sure. Thank you so much for being with me on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Again, it was recorded on Sunday, posted on Sunday, doubles up as our Monday edition of the show. We appreciate you being with us wherever you're checking it out, whenever you're checking it out. Hopefully you had a great Father's Day with your families. If you're a dad, shout out to dads. And if you're not, hopefully if you are able to get in touch with your dad, you talk to him, all that sort of stuff. And if not, hopefully you had some good memories and did something your dad would have wanted you to do on this Father's Day. Again, our next episode of the show will be a crossover edition. We'll be with the Orlando Magic's Locked On host. Really excited for that, talking about what the Grizzlies are getting in Anthony, KCP, what Orlando is getting in Desmond Bane, and so much more. Be on the lookout for that episode. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get podcasts. Also, make sure that now that you have made Locked On Grizzlies your first listen, you're checking out the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft. It's a 5-episode series with the most comprehensive NBA draft analysis from NBA experts, college experts, NBA draft experts. Find the 2025 Locked On NBA Mock Draft on NBA Big Board and Locked On NBA on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, hopefully you're an everydayer at this point. If you're not, this is your first time coming through because of the Bane news. I hope that you'll come back for our next episode and the ones after that. To Michael Cole and I are really proud of the way this show has grown, and we are so grateful to our everydayers. Again, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Google, Amazon, wherever you get a podcast, we're available for Locked On Grizzlies. Shout out to Desmond Bane, a heck of a career as a member of the Memphis Grizzlies franchise, and an interesting summer ahead for the Memphis Grizzlies. Make sure you're hanging out with Locked On Grizzlies through it all. See ya.